Creative struggle. Those two words, they almost seem to be related to each other. Why are they related? Why should there even be struggle? Does there have to be struggle? Why does there have to be struggle? Creative struggle. Alright, so I'm going to share with you what I feel is strongest advice to anyone who has creative struggle, or who maybe doesn't feel totally happy with what they're writing. And this doesn't have to be tune writing, by the way. This is all about tune writing, Scottish, Irish, whatever, tunes, love of melody, in this little YouTube corner of the internet. But whatever you're doing, this is what I think is possibly the best way to feel good, and maybe not necessarily remove struggle, but to have a nice, lovely feeling at the end of it. Okay, my name is Adam Sutherland. I'm a fiddle player, tune writer, composer from Loch Ness in the Highlands of Scotland. I play Scottish fiddle music because I'm Scottish, but I also love Irish music. I love tunes from Scandinavia. I love tunes from all over the world. I just love a good tune, and I don't think I'm any different to anyone else who plays traditional music from anywhere. I love the fact that these days, really the one thing that unites all of the tune playing traditions, bluegrass, old time music from anywhere, is a love of a good tune. And yeah, so that's me. I'm from Scotland. I'm very fortunate fortunate and freaked out that some of my tunes get played all over the place. Just this week I found 3 videos, or I was tagged in 3 videos from 3 different countries in the world, or people playing 3 different tunes of mine. One of my tunes being played in the USA, another being played in Canada, and another one being played in a sushi restaurant in Japan. So I just I have to say these things because that's what YouTube tells me I should be saying at the start of the video. It feels very uncomfortable of me just to big up myself, and if you're Scottish or familiar with anyone in Scotland, you know it. You just don't go around saying like stuff like that about yourself. Right, enough chat. If you want to learn tunes, or if you just like tunes, this is the place for you. But equally, this applies to any creative output, okay? And so here it is, and I'm gonna start off by reading you a parable I've got up on my screen here. There's loads. I think this is a really old bit of advice. First of all, I'll say that it's not new. It's certainly not come from me, but it's something that my brain just went, whoa, that's a thing. And it's something that I'm currently trying to live by. Just in case you're thinking, is he a practitioner or just a preacher? I'm certainly preaching right now, because that's what YouTube is literally for, it seems. But I'm also a practitioner. I'm doing this. I'm kind of living this. Here it is. And here's the parable. I shall read to you. The pottery class. The parable of the pottery class. Do you know this? Here it is. There was once a pottery teacher called Brian. I'm sorry, I was reading this before and I couldn't get past the fact that in this parable, the lead character is called Brian. Anyway, there was once a pottery teacher called Brian. One month, he decided to split his class into 2 groups. Group A had to make a pot every day for 30 days. So 30 pots in total. Group B had to work on a single pot for the whole 30 days. And so obviously they only had 1 pot at the end of the 30 days. Alright, so 2 groups. One group making a brand new pot from scratch every one of the 30 days, and the other group having all of the 30 days to make just 1 pot. I'm going to ask you guys which group had the best pot at the end. At the end of the month, Brian judged the quality of the pots. Without exception, every one of the top 10 pots came from Group A. The guys and girls that made 1 pot per day. None came from the group that focused on perfecting their single pot. So, what do you think about that? Also, just chuck in some comments if you have any. I actually haven't looked at the comments yet. There's Linda Rankin. Hey, Linda. Group B. Okay. Yes, Group B. Right? So, what does that mean? You can probably work it out. What does that mean for your creative outlet? I'll tell you what I think it means, but please chuck in some of your own comments. It means if you're someone who writes tunes, jigs, reels, strathspeys, whatever, and you want to make your best tune, or perhaps a better way of wording it is, if you want to make a tune that you feel happiest with, and I worded that way because your best tune kind of makes it a bit, I don't know, competitive. If you want to write a tune that you're really, really happy with, then you should, according to this, just churn out as many tunes as you kind of can. Hey, Michael Bishop, obvious to you? Okay, cool. I have to say, it wasn't obvious to me when I first read about this, but that just says something rather complimentary about your intelligence, my man. And Michael, by the way, is one of my Patreon subscribers. He is writing loads of tunes. I'm seeing them in our Discord group. We have a closed Discord server where people just share their new tunes. Michael is actually being prolific. You are an example of this, an excellent example of this, Michael. So if you want to get the tunes that you're happy with, write loads, right? Doesn't have to be music, whatever you're doing, just do loads of it. But also, I think there's something else which is not immediately obvious in the parable of Brian. Is that if you're writing tunes every day, or whatever it is you're doing every day, I think if you know you're going to do one every day, and you know you're going to keep chucking them out there, it takes the pressure off. I used to teach in a high school till about a year ago. As a private music teacher, I would go in and I would help some of the young folk with their music tuition in the school, and some of them were doing composition and they had to write a piece of music for their big exam 6 months or so later, and I gave them this advice. I said, you should just write as many tunes as you can, churn them out, and then, well, two things, or at least two things. One, obviously you'll have a massively larger selection of tunes to then put forward. You pick one, put forward, and that is that is kind of obvious. Interestingly, I feel like if you are doing it every day, it takes the pressure off. If you've got one tune and it's got to be amazing for an exam, or for any other reason, if you're putting all this heat and pressure on you to make one tune good, that's a lot of pressure, and maybe that helps you creatively, but maybe it doesn't. Whereas if you know that you're just going to write another tune tomorrow and the next day and the next day, I feel like you've got a bit of creative breathing space. Maybe you might try and write something a bit more adventurous that you wouldn't have tried to write if you were just like, oh, I've got one tune, I've got to get this right. Right, you know what I mean? So if you're writing all the time, or whatever it is you're doing, making clay pots for all I know, or maybe out there some of you are writing, like writing words, if you're continually making yourself finish things, poems, whatever it is, it takes the pressure off. And I think you also you end up getting more experience. You've solved more problems over 30 days. Because each single individual tune will have demanded something different of you. So you've gotten more experience. So your brain structure will be different. You will have different neural pathways that you've had to create to solve different problems. So you'll have a different brain, a better operating system, I like to think of it. So there is some thoughts on that. I was actually reminded of this a few days ago watching a fantastic interview with one of my absolute heroes for the last 5 years, a insanely wise man for his years, a guy called Phineas O'Connell, who is the brother of Billie Eilish, who's one of the top pop artists on the planet right now. I became a huge fan of both of their work during the pandemic. For different reasons, I just think they are just astonishingly wise. And he was using this exact same thing for his own creative output, and I was like, whoa, hit pause. So I hit pause and just made myself write a tune, which I can't quite remember right now and won't play to you because of that reason. But yeah, it was Phineas O'Connell that made me just realize, remember, yeah. So that's that. And I've also been looking up, I can't quite find the origins of this quote. There seems to be different variations. I heard this on a podcast by a guy called Andrew Huberman. But it's this simple, short, beautifully counterintuitive bit of wisdom, which is action precedes motivation, not the other way around. Let me know if that is a new one to you or not. I just think that's wonderful. And when you first think about it, you're like, no, I prefer to feel motivated about something before doing it. Whereas if you always wait to be motivated, how often do you actually do it? Whereas if you, basically it's like the carrot or the stick. If you use the stick more and you're just saying, well, I don't feel motivated, I don't feel like doing it, I don't want to write a tune, therefore I'm going to make myself do it. I don't want to do it. Okay, that's why you're doing it. If you have that approach and you make a habit, so we're kind of getting into the zones of like behavioral change, something which I'm absolutely fascinated with and I've been working hard at, and not always succeeding at, but in my own life, changing my own behavior and examining how I behave and trying to correct behaviors. The idea that you don't have to be motivated, but you'll just do it anyway because you don't wait for motivation. But if you can make yourself just do the stuff, but then once you start, you find motivation. Does that ring true for anyone? It certainly rings true for me. The other day I didn't really feel like writing a tune, but I watched Phineas talking about this and I was like, right, I should write a tune. And then my immediate thought was, I don't really feel inspired. But then it was like, right, well, that's why you're doing it. And 2 or 3 minutes later, I found some notes I liked, and suddenly the motivation kicked in. So yeah, I think motivation is wildly overrated. I think the carrot is overrated. I think the stick is underrated. And yeah, actually this little YouTube channel for me has been a big experiment in that I certainly don't always feel at my best on a Sunday evening, but it's like, you're doing it. And as most of the time, I've done almost all of the Sundays since the start of the year. And the other thing about it is that when I first started off, I think probably some of the folk who are watching this just now may remember my first couple of attempts at this. They were horrendous. Like, the technical issues were beyond laughable. I had this feedback loop where what I was playing was, I still to this day don't quite understand what went wrong, but it was wrong. And it took me about 2 or 3 minutes for me to notice in the chat that people were saying feedback, feedback. So I was playing fiddle and it was just like looping and looping. Horrendous. And going into my first live streams, I kind of knew it was gonna go tits up. I didn't know how, but I knew it was going to. So therefore I didn't feel like doing it. But I was like, well, you're doing it. It's not the carrot, and you're not motivated, and you're not good enough, and you don't have the skills, but you're doing it. And I'm not sitting here claiming to be some kind of YouTube master now. I'm really not. I'm just getting slightly, I'm not going to say better at it, slightly less afraid and slightly less unfamiliar with it. I'll just keep doing it. So consistently building patterns, building behavior change is helping me. Yeah, I think I feel more relaxed talking to the camera here. The first few times it was weird. I'm just using my own life as examples because that's the only thing I have to use examples. But I'm going to look in the chat now to see if anyone has any comments. Linda, hey again. Finding this a bit counterintuitive. However, if it's like practicing, I would agree that it increases motivation to do it more. Well, Linda, you just did is it 100 days of practice? I'm guessing you didn't always feel motivated. Did you find that once you started, you found some motivation? Maybe you didn't. Either way, in terms of like your brain and your skills and your building of skills, you maybe don't need to enjoy it. You maybe don't need to feel motivated. And when it comes to tune writing, I'll chuck this in as well. Maybe you don't even have to like the tune that you're writing. But if you're doing it, you're building experience and you're learning. Maybe you don't have to enjoy the process. This tickles me no end. This recent discovery that maybe writing tunes, I don't even have to like it. But I'm doing it. I just think there's so much to that. Andrina says, totally. Don't know what that referred to, but I'm getting the vibes and I'll take that. And also nice to see you here, Andrina. Thank you very much. Michael Bishop, lack of motivation is an excuse for lazy people. I feel like I'm definitely, I don't know, lazy because I don't always want to do stuff. I pretty much always don't want to do stuff. But I guess lazy, well, what is the definition of lazy? I don't know. I struggle with that one. Oh, thank you, Andrina. Totally, as in completely agree with what you're saying. Thank you very much. Linda saying, yes, it became quite addictive and one of my best parts of the day. So doing your 100 days of practice was one of your favorite parts of the day. You got into a kind of, did it bring you some kind of structure? Remember during the pandemic they were saying you need to have some kind of structure to your day. Perhaps that's what you got from doing it. But yeah, creatively, you don't have to like what you're doing. But if you just make yourself do it, and eventually, going back to the clay pot analogy, you'll have just loads of stuff. And then you can just maybe pick something that you like. You'll have a greater kind of reservoir to draw on. I'm sure David Bowie said something like this. In fact, I heard the other day that Ed Sheeran writes 5 songs a day. That's amazing. I'm guessing he's probably got the time though. He's maybe not like got possibly other pressures to take up his time. Also, I can't really judge his life, but that's incredible. I'm guessing he doesn't like all his songs. I'm guessing we certainly don't hear all of his songs if he's writing 5 songs a day. But that's it. And that is my kind of number one tip for anyone, is just to do it. So it's about habits, structure, and chucking it out. I've written tunes sometimes where I've been like moderately happy with them, quite happy, but then not released the tune, as in played it to anyone, not recorded it, and then being glad that I did that, because I then wrote a tune at a later date which kind of was a bit similar to my earlier tune that I was just referring to, so I couldn't release them both. But the newer one was much better, so it was almost like an idea I was trying to get out but wasn't quite there. And then round 2, when the next tune came out, it was much more effective. Andrina, it's like knowing you have tons of gardening to do and you feel overwhelmed, but if you just go out and potter, you'll find that one by one jobs get done and you have to tear yourself away. Yeah, it's like also just that thing of just start. Do one press up, do one whatever it is. You have to tear yourself away to go and make the tea. Yeah. So yeah, this isn't like groundbreaking new advice. It's just something that has just come to me recently as a reminder. And I think sometimes we don't have to learn new stuff. We just have to remember or be reminded of the old lessons sometimes. Yeah. So there was actually another anecdote. I wish I could remember the name of this author, but I read this. Eric says, I've not considered composing en masse. Okay. Well, here you go. Let that thought take root. Also, hello, Eric. Nice to see you here. I read an article. It's about the same thing. A lady author who had been working on a story for ages, and she had a publisher who wanted her to finish the book. She wasn't happy with her story because no matter how many times and how many ways she rejigged the tale, there was one of the characters that just, no matter what she did, always felt a bit two-dimensional. And she just couldn't make the story any better in that regard. So she had a kind of radical idea, which was, maybe I just need to finish the book and publish it, send it to the publishers with this boring, banal, two-dimensional character in it, and just accept that that's as good as this story's going to get, and it's got that 2D character in it. So she did that, and what she noticed was, first of all, her creative and possibly literal desk was cleared. She wasn't having to work away on this one tune, it was gone. She then had a clear desk and a clear mind, which meant she could start a new story. So she wrote a new story, and the frustration that she felt with this character in her older story that she just published, she was able to mete out her frustration in this new character in a way that wasn't restricted by the direction of the previous story. So in other words, she was able to preemptively fix this problem in this new tale. She wouldn't have been able to do that if she had not decided to just kind of let go and finish the book with its faults. If she was still stuck in that book, she wouldn't have gotten to the new book that she was then writing, and she wouldn't have been able to fix preemptively the problems. So that was the first interesting thing about that. Second of all, and I love this, she published the first book, which meant obviously it was getting read. Someone did a review, and they said it's a great book, everything's fantastic, except one thing I would say is one of the characters is really two-dimensional. And so the lady, when she read this, laughed. Rather than being, oh no, they noticed my 2D character, oh no. She laughed because she thought, I totally agree. Yeah, that's got a 2D character. Couldn't agree more. So she admitted it, and she wasn't embarrassed by that or just ashamed by that. She just knew that she had to, the book was basically finished, and that was as good as it was going to get. So I just think that's a great story, and maybe there's examples for you out there if you're watching live or if you're watching in the future. Maybe you've got a creative project you're involved in or a tune you're writing that you're just continually rewiring and you can't quite get it right. Maybe you need to finish that tune and just accept that that's the tune in order to make way for your next tune, and take the frustrations out that you had on your previous tune, preemptively take them out on your new tune. I'm going to look at some of the comments. Eric, you probably keep messing about on one tune. Call it improv. I should record what I do and listen back to. So, a couple of things there. Messing about on one tune is certainly something that I personally do a lot of. I don't always... I'm a big fan of having several drafts. So I'm not going to say that's bad. I do it myself. And it is kind of improvisatory in feel, doing that. And recording what you do to listen back to is something I certainly do. And luckily these days, it's never been easier to record ourselves, you know, with like voice memos, apps, and stuff like that. But at some point, maybe it's time to stop messing about. That's a thought. And Eric's also saying same words, different scenarios, same notes, different rhythm. Yeah, so you're talking about the comparison between this lady writing a novel, I think it was, and yeah, same notes, different rhythms. Yeah, comparing that to music. Yeah. Also, a lot of the greatest artists in history, mainstream, have been prolific. They've churned out just so much material. And if I can't think of any exact examples right now, but if any of the great composers or artists that have been prolific, that if they'd just been stuck on one tune and not released it, maybe their actual greatest work wouldn't have come out. So maybe this is a trait of some of the great creators, is that in a way they're not too, I don't know what the word is, too worried about what people think. They just release stuff, and maybe they know it's not their best, but they release it. So it's almost like a kind of, I've spoken about this before in previous videos, this word codependency. That's my amateur psychologist coming in there. Where you're really scared about what other people think all the time, and how that's not a good way to be. Maybe a lot of the greatest artists are not too worried about releasing something that isn't their best work. Maybe it's almost like a lack of ego, or like a lack of narcissism. I'm not saying this is narcissistic, but they're not too concerned about their image to just chuck something out there. So that's lessons for us all, I think. It's just to keep writing and keep finishing tunes, and just keep doing that. And in doing so, you're clearing your desk, you're clearing the way for your next tune, and you're getting better at the composing process. And I do think there is something to be said for just finishing a tune as part of the skill set. The actual just finishing a tune and just going, it's done. And I'm going to quote Phineas O'Connell again in his wonderful interview. It was just quite a new interview. He was talking about him writing music for a brand new Netflix show, and I can't get the exact wording was, but one of the things he said was, he was asked about, do you love the creative process? And he says something like, yeah, but not as much as I just like being done. He likes finishing. He was asked, are you someone who can finish something and then let it go? And he said he's very good at letting go. He wants to actually get to the point where he's done. And that is, I was just not surprised to hear that he was so aware of that as a skill, and so comfortable just saying, I have no problem getting to the finishing line. So that's something we can all learn. I was just taking mental notes for myself. I'm like, there's your hero, Phineas. He likes to be done. He likes to finish. He likes to clear his desk. So I'm just saying the same thing again and again and again here, but I just think this is really great advice. I can say that with confidence because it's not come from me. It's real wisdom. I'm looking at examples of great artists. They finish stuff, they get it done, they clear the desk, and then they get on to the next thing. And also before that, they're also making themselves write stuff. Linda, I find it easier to share your tunes, harder to share your songs. I have massive respect for anyone who shares, well, anything they've written. But writing songs, whoa, words, my goodness me. I can write a tune and I might think I know what I was feeling or thinking when I wrote this, but I don't have to really nail my colours to the mast by putting words. So I don't blame you for being scared about sharing songs. Songwriting's a whole thing I definitely don't have any much experience with. And a good question from Andrina, is that because they are more personal, Linda? I'm going to also chuck in a question there, Linda, and that is, are your songs, is it really clear what they're about? Because you know how there's some songs, and again, I keep quoting Billie Eilish and Phineas here, they love writing songs where it could be about anything. and they're a big fan of, like, they've written songs and they know what it was about, but then they hear their fans saying, "Oh, I love this song. It's about this," and they're thinking, "Well, that's not what it's about." But they love that the person listening to it took their own meaning and was able to do so because the words of the song were not so specific about, days and names and events. It was more generic. So I don't know if that's the style of songwriting you go for, Linda, or are you more like specific? If I was ever going to get into writing songs, I think I would do it like that. I think I would just almost just use words that sound cool and don't necessarily, I could maybe decide what it means afterwards. Is that a thing? I think certain songwriters do that. I was looking at a Nirvana song recently, the lyrics, and I just couldn't for the life of me work out what the song was about. It was just almost like abstract painting. And then I thought, well, maybe, am I thick? Am I stupid for not being able to work it out? And I thought, no, maybe it's just supposed to be that way, and maybe that's okay. Michael Bishop, songs allow more repetition of phrases. Yeah, I think you might be onto something there. That's a good insight, because is that because you're using words, and so each phrase has got some difference? It's not like if you're playing a melody and you don't have words, like if you repeat it, it's going to sound more similar. Interesting insight. Eric, hello again. The jig exercise weeks ago has rattled your cage, I hope in a good way, on mandolin. I was once told not to waste a pluck, so you played notes that weren't there. Now I try the held note. Okay, I'm thinking that's a good thing, what you're describing there. That's exactly the kind of thing that I like when someone says something that rattles my cage, when someone says something that messes with my head in a way that makes me want to go and investigate. So hopefully that's the kind of experience you're feeling there. And here's Andrina again. You had a conversation with a pro singer-songwriter recently who had written some new, very personal songs, and went to another songwriter who helped her say the same thing in a less direct way. So that sounds like going from the really specific songwriting to changing it a bit to make it so they're still saying the same thing, but not quite so, maybe not feeling quite so vulnerable in doing so. That sounds interesting. Okay, Linda's response in regarding to her own writing, like poetry, they're personal and interpretive. That's good. Well, actually, whatever you do is good because it's your writing. But that's well, that feels to me safer. That is interesting. It's also interesting to work with someone else with your writing. To have written something and then bring someone else in. That's fascinating. Yeah, so also the whole songwriting thing is a fascinating thing. You can use rhythm of words to come up with melody, because as I've many times ranted on about on this channel, you can pick a rhythm of an existing tune and find some notes that stick on it, but perhaps picking a rhythm of some words is a great way into writing a tune. Yeah. So can someone chuck in some words and I'll try and write something. Michael Bishop, assumption that songs are autobiographical. There is an assumption that, I think you're probably right, a lot of folk do assume that the person singing is singing about their own experience, but there are songs, I think this is what you're alluding to here, there are songs that are written about a fictional character, and yeah, that would be an unsafe assumption to make. I think you're quite right. Okay, I'm slightly worried I'm going to mispronounce the name of the person who's just commented. It looks like Irish Gaelic. Dali, tell me if I've got that right. Welcome here. Do you choose the key according to how it makes you feel, or how it suits the fiddle? Neil Gow seemed to have used, for example, B flat whenever it became melancholic, even though it would have been easier to play in G. That's a question not just for me, that's a question for anyone here. A key according to how it makes you feel. I quite often, feeling's a great thing. Feelings is certainly my main compass, if not, it's not necessarily my only compass, but my main compass is how things feel. So yeah, I might be mucking around on the fiddle, and certain notes, depending on how I feel that day, will best represent how I feel. And so that, I suppose that's a yes. How it suits the fiddle, I would be lying if I didn't say that I certainly have picked keys that are easier to play. Like, I mean, there definitely are easier and not so easy keys on the fiddle, as the same in any instrument. But having said that, I've written some tunes on the fiddle as a result of going into the keys on the fiddle that I can't play in very well. Like, not setting out to write a tune, but going, right, I'm going to try and work out how to play something in the key of, I think I mentioned this last week or 2 weeks ago, D flat major. I'll just do some scales and arpeggios in D flat for the simple reason that I'm not really very comfortable in that key. And then as a result of getting into that unknown, uncomfortable zone, I end up writing a tune. So I've done it from that way around as well. Eric says to Andrina and to us all, of course, Alex turned reels into jigs. That's good fun. Okay, someone give me some words to try and make a wee tune out of, just to kind of maybe finish this chat off, which is I'm loving all the comments. It's making me think. So give me some words and I'll try and make some kind of rhythm out of it, or a few different rhythms. And whilst I'm waiting, I'm going to have a sip of Lucozade, because I was doing a Ceilidh last night way up in Blair Castle, which actually has I was playing underneath the painting of Neil Gowrie. He was literally staring over my shoulder last night in this Ceilidh, which was weirdly spooky and intense. Okay, I'm gonna just pick some words if no one's gonna chuck them out there. Let's see now. Assumption that songs are autobiographical. Raise the flag atop yon hill. I won't, I shan't, you can't make me so there. Right, I'll do both of those. Raise the flag atop yon hill. What's the rhythm of that? When you just say it without thinking about it. Raise the flag atop yon hill. One da da ba da da da. Raise the flag atop yon hill. Raise the flag atop yon hill. Oh, it could be jig, jiggity jiggity. Raise the flag atop yon hill. 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 Raise the flag atop yon. Raise the flag atop yon hill. I'm hearing that in jig time or 7/8. Raise the flag atop the no. Raise the flag atop yon hill. No, that's not 7/8. Raise the flag atop yon hill. Raise the flag atop yon hill. Raise the flag atop. Diddle da ba da da. Raise the flag atop yon hill. Da ba da ba da ba da. You can make it into a slash speed. Raise the flag atop yon hill. There you go. There's a million different things you could do with that. Maybe you should be trying this at home. That's the bigger takeaway rather than me just doing it. I won't, I shan't, you can't make me so there. I won't, I shan't, I won't, I shan't. That reminds me a little bit of Brockenlom, Tanam Lam. I won't, I shan't. I won't, I shan't, you can't make. Okay, I won't, I shan't. Dump but that. I won't, I shan't, you can't make me so there. I won't, I shan't, I won't, I shan't, you can't make me so. I won't, I shan't, you can't make me so that. It's quite hard after I won't, I shan't, but I won't, I shan't, you can't make me so there. I won't, I shan't, you can't make me so there. I won't, I shan't, you can't make me so there. This should be in a minor key. I won't. What if it's slower? You can't make. I won't. You can't make me. Quite like that. I'm not sure I totally stuck to the rhythm of the tune quite strictly, but I think it's okay to break the rules. Thank you for your kind comments. I won't, I shan't, you can't make me, so there, so there, so there. Yeah, I hope this is it's making me think. So here's the thing, yeah, maybe get somebody else to give you some words. Also, thank you, Michael. Those words, I won't, I shan't, those are strong. That's a strong sentence. Am I writing a song? I won't, I shan't, you can't make me, so there. Are you channeling my existence as a one of two parents to a 2-year-old? I think maybe that's what you're hinting at. Her English isn't quite as good as that yet, but I'm sure that's coming. Be syllable specific. Is that another tune? Brian likes a lot of pots. Linda, okay. Brian likes a lot of pots. Brian. Oh, yes, I see what you've done there. You've gone back to the pottery. Brian. So that's like Badum. That sounds Strathspey. Brian likes a lot of pots. A lot of pots. Likes Brian likes a lot. I can't do the same tune. And Yuki. Brian likes a lot of pots. That sounds like an existing tune. Brian likes a lot of pots. I'm going back to the other tune. Not liking any of these, but I'm just showing you that this is just chucking it out. Brian likes a lot of pots. going. Okay, so I feel like I'm making a very good example here of how not every idea, certainly that I write, is something that should ever be played again. I feel like it's quite important for me, as someone who's I guess a professional musician and talking about tune writing. It's important for me just to show well, a lot of my ideas are like, I don't know, not that exciting or stuff that deserves to be repeated, and no one just always doing their best stuff. But to bring it back to the point of this video, if you're just always chucking stuff out, you're just more likely to chuck out something that is something that you're happy with. Yeah. Okay. 47 minutes of this conversation feels like a nice time to kind of just be sealing it up. So really nice to have all my regulars here, and also to have a couple of new folk here. Hello, Dali, and anyone else watching who's not commenting. It's so nice to just have this conversation with you all each week. I love doing this, and I'm just very grateful. Also, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and like and subscribe right now. Go on, hit the button. You probably all have done it already, but thank you for your support. I've just read a comment, a really interesting comment from Andrina Ballantyne. Norman McCaig once said that his greatest tool was his waste paper bin. That's interesting. Of course, if you're not aware, Norman McCaig was one of Scotland's great poets. Was he from Orkney? Was he the one from Orkney? I've probably just shown my ignorance there. That's a whole other conversation about the waste paper bin, you know. I would say, maybe going back to this topic, that his greatest tool was the fact that he was filling the bin, and the bin was being filled because of the process that was going on before it. Recycling bin. Nice, Michael. That's not from Orkney. Wow, who's the one from Orkney? Anyway, the recycling bin. That's great. I like that. But the bin was filling up because he was chucking out ideas, right? It wasn't an empty bin because he was furiously chucking out ideas, and there was a filtering. Edinburgh, definitely not Orkney. Thank you, Andrina, for that fact checking there. Very grateful for that. Yeah, so go and fill your recycling bins, if you're not already. Whether you, maybe next time you don't feel like doing it, do it because you don't feel like doing it, because motivation comes after action. And yeah, doing it lots means there's less pressure on each thing. It gets you closer to that childlike, ultimate artistic state where you're just like a wee kid playing, having fun. This just removes the heat, removes all the pressure, because you're like, whatever, I don't even care whether this is amazing or not. Good work. Thank you, Michael Bishop. But honestly, this would be horrendous if it was just me talking. I could probably just yabber on for the best part of an hour, but I'm really loving and benefiting from the conversational aspect of this. And I think anyone watching this live and not commenting is also benefiting from the conversational aspect. And anyone watching this in the future is going to be benefiting from your comments. So this isn't just me. This is a team game here, and I'm really, really loving this. I was thinking that, Andrina, as I asked that, Andrina was an English teacher, so yeah, I think we can be very sure about your correctness on where Norman McCaig was from and my wrongness on that. Who was the poet that was from Orkney? Was that George Mackay Brown? exposing myself to even more ridicule here. Anyway, thank you for your comments and chat. I really enjoyed this tonight. I always really enjoy it. And if you want to come and see me on Patreon, that'd be lovely to have you there. I have a free tier. I could share stuff just a bit more there than I do on other social media places. And obviously, if you want more, I have tiers that you can subscribe to, and you unsubscribe to anytime you like. A lot of people on Patreon think, oh, if I do it for a month, that's me for life. No, I always say to folk, stick around for as long or as short as you want. It's your life, it's your money, and I'm grateful for anything. I'm also just grateful for this. In fact, I'm just generally grateful. So I'll stop yabbering there, because I'm now in the yabber mode. So thank you, Andrina. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Dali. Hope I got that right. And thank you, everyone at home watching just in peace. And I hope I've not missed anyone out. It's been really nice to speak to you guys tonight. So, and get in touch with me if you have any, I don't know, results or paradigm shifts in your own creative work. And thank you all for your support here. I really appreciate it. So for me, Adam Sutherland here, broadcasting live from this little shed somewhere in Scotland, I'm going to say have a very, very nice rest of your day. And yeah, 7 p.m. most Sundays. Who knows what we're talking about next week? I have no idea. Something to do with tune writing. Okay. Thank you all, and I will say goodbye. Goodbye.